Hey, good day to you. Thanks for opening up this video and watching. I've always had kind of an unconventional view of life, my life, how I operate in the world. A little irreverent, and I'm not a total rule follower, not a total rule breaker. I respect law, respect regulation, respect requirements. As a project manager, you got to have some requirements in everything you do. That being said, though, I've not always taken the straightest path or gone with the norms at the time. Even picking friends at times has looked odd to the outside world. I've got a lot of friends that I've had for a couple decades now that I didn't really like them for probably the first year or so that I knew them. And the same for me. They didn't necessarily like me for some reason. There was something that kind of rubbed each other the wrong way when we first met. Over time, though, we somehow figured out that we had a lot of things that would work in a friendship. Personality differences, interests, motivations. It actually kind of worked. It didn't necessarily complement each other. It didn't necessarily act as the opposite. They just fit together over time. Sometimes you got to give things a little bit of a moment to breathe and work itself out. And it reminds me of a book that I read at least 15 years ago called Weird Ideas That Work. It was a business book, it was a management book. One of the themes that's always stuck with me is putting together people that don't necessarily get along, don't necessarily see eye to eye, and oftentimes that does work. And I had thought that way before I read the book, and then I saw it in print, saw it as a potential management practice, and I put it to use. And I even think about that with folks that have quote unquote worked for me. They've been reports to me, contractors, all kinds of different roles. That at times I look at people that I know are going to drive me crazy. They do stuff when we get together that drives me crazy, drives me nuts. Yet I also realize it's very effective, and it's done in a style or a manner that may not be my own, or it is, and I know it's going to work for whatever's trying to get done. So, the conventional path to me seldom works. Having absolute reverence for everything seldom works. Even when I was in the military, I questioned a lot, which sounds interesting to people when I tell them that story. I remember telling my mom that in some ways, Army perfected some of my attitudes and outlook on this irreverence thing and unconventional thing. Mostly because you're in situations where you do have to think for yourself, and you got to think about the situation. You got to think about how to get through it, and delivering projects, building teams, managing teams, leading teams, and the business world, consulting, whatever it is you do, is not that much different. You're faced with a challenge and you got to get there. And so I think the more that you can become comfortable with doing things with a lack of convention and a little bit of irreverence, the better. Oftentimes the best work you're going to do in your life is going to be done at the edges. It's going to be done outside of the norm. You're trying to take an issue that is, it's not that it's never happened, but it is kind of an uncommon thing. And yeah, there may be some solutions out there, but eventually you got to cobble all that stuff together. So the more you could try to release those burdens of always working in convention and reverence for something. When you work in convention or work in reverence, all you're doing is saying that everything that's been done before is absolutely perfect. There's no reason to question it. And that absolutely doesn't work. That's going to absolutely probably lead you to failure at a point. Something will break down. Something will go wrong. And if all you've done is relied on convention and absolute reverence for something, you're probably destined for failure. So, not something that you will necessarily read in a kind of how-to for being a project manager, although there's some good articles along these veins. Obviously, there's some books out there. But just because it's written doesn't mean it's practiced. I try to practice it, and I encourage you to practice it a little bit. Hopefully this has been good for you, and you've gotten something out of it. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you later.